for the next episode. I can't wait to get home and turn my TV on. I'm ready for the next episode. Got my snap shoes off, my remote control. I'm ready for the next episode.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to next episode with your host, Nick.
And I'm Jess.
And today we're going to be discussing The Resort.
Yes.
So, Jess, you originally saw the show when it came out, or?
I saw it, I want to say it was like not when it first came out, because I guess it came out in 2022. I saw it in 2023. So it's been a couple years since I first watched it. But I really did enjoy it. It was recommended to me by one of my friends. And I felt like the storytelling was really interesting. So yeah, I figured it would be an interesting one for us to talk about.
So this is another show where I'm like, hey, Jess, can we get something light? So our last light suggestion is one of your comfort shows. And I'm like, this didn't feel light to me at all. I will say that this show actually it's very light.
Okay. I was like, okay, afterwards, after watching it again, because again, like when we talked about it, I'm like, okay, I hadn't watched it in a long time, but I don't remember it feeling particularly heavy. I think mainly because it wasn't really hitting home anywhere for me. But then I watched it again, and I was like, oh, I don't know how she's gonna feel about this.
Honestly, there a lot of the thematic elements are things that I can definitely relate to, but the story is so different. It's so interesting. Like the show, it wasn't until the show was over that I was sure what the show was about. Because as I'm watching the show, I'm like, wait a minute, what story are we telling? Yeah. What are we doing? And so that was very interesting. I've never had a show where it had to end for me to understand what the show was actually about. So that was different, and it was not triggering for me. And okay. I wasn't like it wasn't super deep. And so I thank you for a light show.
Okay. I was worried about that. So I was like, oh, it feels light to me, but maybe what feels light to me is a little bit off.
I think right now, like your life is so light that you can handle like deeper things, and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter.
There's truth to that. Because when my life does feel heavy, I stay away from heavy shows. But yeah. Okay.
But no, I did also enjoy the show. So let's talk about the story. Let's kind of give a synopsis.
Okay.
But it has to have a little detail to it, because like I said, the show at first glance seems very simplistic, but it just kind of gets more and more and more complicated, and then it ends. So can you give us a synopsis?
I will do my best. So the story surrounds a couple, Emma and Noah, who are on their 10-year anniversary in Mexico in the Yucatan Peninsula. I want to say they're in the Riviera Maya, Cancun area. So they go to this resort, like an all-inclusive resort, and they're just trying to, have a good time for their anniversary. But it's very clear that they have some significant marital issues. It's not clear what those issues are at first, but just they seem very distant and cold with each other. Something feels off. So in that, it also to me seems like they're kind of avoiding those marital issues. So the wife gets really involved in a mystery. They go on an ATV ride. She finds a phone from 2007. Like it looks like a really old looking Razr phone. And then for some reason, she just kind of completely engulfs herself in figuring out the things about this phone, which leads to her finding out that there was another resort not too far away from them, where two children, not children, I don't know why I keep calling them kids. They were like young adults, college age kids. They disappeared on the day after Christmas in 2007. And they disappeared on Christmas Eve. There's a lot of weirdness kind of surrounding their disappearance, and then a once in a lifetime hurricane comes in and wipes out all of the information that the police could have used to solve their disappearance. So she sets out to solve this mystery, and her husband gets pulled into it, and in a weird way it starts to bond them together. And then we start meeting a lot of different characters that were involved at the time. A security guard who was there, a person who works at the current resort that they're at. One of the hostesses, she used to be a maid at the former one, and they start meeting all these different characters who are involved in this mystery, and then it also brings them into sort of this kind of magical world that is also going on at the same time in that in the same area.
So what's interesting about this story is we can both agree that this show is set in like a magical realism like world.
Yes, absolutely.
But I did not figure that out until halfway through the show. Did you know before then?
No. And I think like that's part of like it slowly unveils, like you don't realize that there's something magical going on, that there's a magical element to like, yeah, like so the show is 8 episodes long. And I want to say it's like the 4th episode before you realize like something else is going on here with their disappearance. Something's a little bit off. There's so much happened, like it's hard to kind of give a succinct synopsis of what happened. But yeah, around about the 4th episode, like I said, you find out that there are other characters that you already met who did know the 2 missing young adults. You also find out that the girl who's missing, her name is Violet, is searching for this place called Pasaje, which was in a book that her deceased mother gave to her. And so part of their disappearance is that they're looking for this magical place, and she believes that she'll be able to see her mother again if she can find it.
So we talked about when we reviewed Kevin Can F Himself, we talked about how much we enjoyed the story because of how different it was told. Mm-hmm. And we've seen magical realism before, but we've never seen magical realism like this where it sneaks up on you. Like the show starts off firmly planted in the real world with very normal people who are having very normal problems. They've been married for 10 years. They've been together for 15. And you feel that kind of stagnation that can come in a long relationship. So you're kind of like gelling and vibing with them. And you're like, oh, this story is about, them finding their way back to each other. And so like you're very comfortable in the direction that the story is going. You're like, oh, okay, well, she's found this phone. She wants to solve this mystery. Her husband is willing to go along with her, and they're going to use this situation to bond themselves back together. And then like the story just completely shifts halfway through, and there's all of these magical and mystical elements. And it's so unexpected and it's so interesting the way that they did it. So much so that I literally called you during the 4th episode and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to watch this show, but like we're losing the plot here. Like what's going on? Like all of a sudden we're talking about about memory leakage and I don't understand what's going on. And you're like, just push through. Just watch it. Because it like you really feel that like kind of tonal shift, like you're stepping out of one world into another.
Yeah. And I will say this, there's an eerie feeling from the first episode that's going, but you just don't know where that eerie feeling is going. So I do think like that kind of pulls you. You're like, okay, something's off here. Something's off with the couple. Something's a little bit off with the resorts,
Well, and I think that eerie, because one of the things that we did not mention is the way that they tell the story in the beginning. And what you don't realize is you're meeting the characters. So you're meeting this couple, the married couple. And then you're also meeting the characters that end up going missing, but you don't realize it immediately. You think that you're just meeting people at the resort, different people that are at the resort on vacation. And within the first couple episodes, though, you realize that the younger people that you're seeing, their story is actually the kids who end up going missing. So that was the first interesting way that they were telling the story. They were telling like
The shift
flashbacks that you
between
didn't know were
timelines.
flashbacks. Right. It did feel like timelines.
Hmm.
It did feel like you were like on you're watching two different timelines, but you had to get there. It wasn't immediately told. And so that was really interesting. So you think that that's like the interesting thing that they're doing with the story. And then all of a sudden like it just like kind of steps in from like the normal world into a more magical world. And so I will say that as like this, I've never seen a story told this way. So I love when people do things that are different and that are innovative and that keep you like on your feet. So currently I'm very deep into the world of Severance. And
Hmm.
Severance is kind of like it's a big mystery, and it's one of those shows where everybody comes up with theories and you have to watch each episode and several times so that you can look at the background, so that you can look at the foreground. And so in my mind, when I'm watching this show, I was like, oh, I wonder, what's going on with this mystery. Am I going to be able to solve it? Because I'm already in, critical mode because of Severance. And as I'm watching this show, I'm like, wait a minute. This is not the same kind of show, but it is interesting and it is different. And I honestly wish that writers would take more chances. I know the show only got one season. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess like people would say, well, if you're taking chances, your show is not going to be successful.
Hmm.
But I just think that the more shows where people take chances, the more people can appreciate it. I literally did not hear about this show when it came out originally. I didn't hear about the show when you watched it. The only reason why I knew about the show was because you told me.
Yeah.
And there are shows that need that time to get that word of mouth, audience,
Hmm.
because it wasn't full of superstars. Like Nick Offerman is in the show and he's well known from
Hmm.
like he was on Parks and Rec. And then Chidi from The Good Place was in the show.
Hmm.
I don't know his real name, and he will forever be Chidi to me.
Hold on, let me find this man's real name. It is so simple. It is William Jackson Harper.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Chidi
You're
fits him better.
disappointed.
I am. You don't think Chidi fits him better?
It's hard to not see him as Chidi even in this show.
Right, but he didn't have like the worst qualities of Chidi in this show.
No,
He
he
had the
did.
best
He
qualities,
did have the best qualities of Chidi in this show.
but
That's
it was still like that because there's like a genuine like goodness
hmm
about
that
both
comes across with this
characters.
particular actor. Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
I'm fully he could be a monster. I would never believe it.
No, right.
Like
It would be, yeah. You would really have to fight to get me to convince me because there's
right.
just something like wholesome and innocent that comes from
Yes, he
William
is. Yes,
Jackson
it does
Harper.
come across as very, very. He does come across
He
as very, very
does.
wholesome. I enjoy him. So
Mhm.
it wasn't
Oh, he
like
needs to
a
play a villain. That's just it. He needs to play a villain in something.
right. So it wasn't like a star-studded cast because I'm. It was like people you've seen in other things, but you can't
Right.
necessarily name. But the cast was good. The performances were great. I really think that, like, given time, this show like could have done really well.
I would have definitely liked to see where they would have taken it in season two, just like where they would have gone with the characters. Because I think there's so many different ways that they could have gone because the show is so kind of mysterious and there's a lot of elements to it. So yeah, I really wish they had gotten a second season too.
Why do you think that there's people are so hesitant to get creative when it comes to shows? Because there's a million versions of NCIS, and I'm not going to pretend like I have not watched most of them, even
Right.
though the original is my favorite. There's so many Law and Orders.
Yeah. I don't know that I think writers are hesitant to get creative. I think that this is what happens. Like either, and I think like them getting a first season probably is since the show is so different, is probably magical in and of itself. I think that it's probably like the people who fund it are not willing to take chances more so than that writers are not being creative.
Mhm. You get there's such a small window. Like I feel like in previous like decades of television, they gave you time to build an audience. Even streaming platforms like Netflix, like they will create a great show and cancel it after one season. I have there's a list. There's a ton of shows that
Mm-hmm.
I'm so angry about, and honestly, it makes it. Here's the ironic thing. It makes it hard for you to be willing to try a new show
Invest in the show, yeah.
because you get frustrated
Mm-hmm.
and like, well, it's only going to be for one season, and now I'm invested in these characters, I'm invested in this story, and I'll never get my like resolution. And so a lot of times I may wait until a show has 2 or 3 seasons before I check it out, because
Mm-hmm.
I one season is not enough. It's a tease.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now there are definitely times where it's like, okay, I want to watch a long show. Let me see. Let me make sure it's already got like 5 seasons before I even start this, because
Absolutely.
I don't have time to play with y'all today.
Absolutely. So the resort. So we were talking about the storytelling and the pacing of the show. And so, like I said, like the first half of the show is paced one way with like the flashbacks and the telling the kind of like the timelines, you know, and then episode 4, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the show becomes a lot more fast paced.
Okay. Yeah, I took them first few episodes are like they're definitely slow moments that feel slow. Yeah,
Compared
but
to the fact, I didn't feel it in the beginning because
Mhm.
I thought I knew where
You
the
feel until
story
you
was
hit
going.
Alex. Yeah,
I'm
until
sorry,
you didn't feel it until you hit Alex
Alex.
Alejandro.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, in my mind he was Alejandro. Um, yes, right, because I thought I knew where the story was going, and
Mm-hmm.
then yes, once you hit Alejandro, first of all, it's a shakeup because that's when you kind of step into the magical realism, and you're like, something's weird here.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we? First of all, why are we focused on this person? Because
That's what pissed you off. You're like, why are we all of a sudden focused on this?
like who? I'm like, who is he? He's not one of the missing people. He's not one of the people searching for the missing people. Why are we spending time with this character? Is what I called you and said. I'm like, I don't know. And he's in his health problems because he's like, I've got memory leakage, and I'm like, why are we talking about this random person in his health problems? And you're like, no, he's actually important. Keep going. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so at that point, like the story to me kind of speeds up because all of a sudden we're like in so many different places and doing
Mm-hmm.
so many different things, and they're traveling, and like you meet a new character like every like twice an episode. You're bringing in new people, and so it's very much like you really feel it shift gears in
Mm-hmm.
episode 4. And I wonder if they were trying to pack things in just in case the show didn't get another another
Another season.
season.
Well, let me tell you. Okay, so when I first watched it, I didn't even realize it was like a series in that way. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was like a limited series.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not expecting a second season. But now realizing that, like, no, they were expecting the second season and they just like didn't get renewed. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, the show's kind of made in a way to where it can be contained. Like it could be everything in one season, and maybe that is just in case they didn't get a second one. But there's still plenty of room if y'all want to give us a second season, because I would like one.
There's so many unanswered
So many.
questions.
Which is part of it, though. I feel like, like, okay, so like now getting into the way that the story is told. So part of the story is Balthasar Frias is the head of security at the Oceana Vista, which is the original 2007 resort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is, when he's a child, and this is my favorite scene, gets into this back and forth with this author, Ilan Ibarra, and they get like, because he does not like his novel, right? And he doesn't like the novel because he feels like it's a crime. It's supposed to be a crime mystery novel, but he's like, there's no crime. There's no ending to the story. You know what I mean? It's just left. He calls it a pamphlet, and he goes back and forth with the writer. But I felt like that was a lot of foreshadowing for this story too. Like, and it's kind of calling into question, like, what makes a story, and like what elements do you need in a story? Because this one very much so is like a mystery, but technically now we know there's no we get to the end, there's no real crime. It looks several points in time. You think, okay, Alex might have done something to these kids. Ilani Barta is kind of off his, off, and you think he might have done something too. And I keep calling them kids, but they're young adults. They're like college age,
Right.
And you're just like, who did something? Why did they disappear? What happened to them? And to only to find out that they kind of did this to themselves. They, following this mystery, they just they disappeared because of their own choices. So, and in that way, that's what the show too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's no crime, and there's no clear ending, and there's no clear meaning.
and that's why I said, like, I've never seen a show where I got to the end and then had to like kind of review and like, wait a minute, what is the actual story? Like, what actually happened? And is it over? Are we done?
Mm-hmm.
What happens? What happens now? Because like, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Because also like, and we can get more into this in the next episode when we talk about like the thematic elements. But did the married couple, did they resolve their issues?
No. No, they didn't.
Nothing resolved.
Yeah, nothing is resolved, and because stuff doesn't get resolved that quickly. But what I do think that they had lost, and what they found was that what made them a couple, that thing. So like when we meet them, because we also get a flashback of when they met in 2007 too. So like while all of this is going on at the resort, and the kids are going missing, they are meeting. It seems like maybe a year or two post college like age. They're young adults too,
right?
At that time, and they have this weird, really quirky, really like corny sense of humor, but they share it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And as you see them, and when we first see them, they're in such a bad place as a couple because they've gone through so much. We don't know what they've gone through, but we eventually find out what they've gone through. That they've lost that. And so I think by the end of the story, no, all their problems aren't fixed. No, it's not clear whether or not they're going to stay together, but they found that. They're starting to joke with each other again like that. Mm-hmm. They start to, like, they have that little, I don't even know what to call it, that little something that makes it clear that you're a couple.
Chemistry, there
we go.
Because they did not have it in the beginning. And you know what? The funny thing is, and I've seen this in shows where, like, I saw the same thing in Average Joe. So in Average Joe, like, when you meet, so it's been so long, I cannot remember the names. Kathy and, is it Leon? No, Kathy and who?
Leon.
Kathy and Leon, you're like, why are they together?
Yeah.
And so you, in the beginning, you feel the same way. And it's not that either one of these people are bad people, but they don't vibe together. They seem
right.
Like
they don't fit.
Why
are you?
Like, what is it? Like, how were they ever a couple? But then in the flashback, you get to see what they've lost. You get to see that connection. They did have a connection, and they did get each other and understand each other, because it's not that you don't doubt that they love each other. You never doubt that they love each other. Right. But you're like, how did they even fall in love? Because they just don't seem, to have any chemistry. But you get to see it and see that they lost it, which is very true to life. Mm-hmm. Being in long relationships, it's just not all lovey-dovey.
It's there. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just not there. So if I like that we got to see them at their best, so that we can understand that what they're going through now is worth pushing past.
Mm-hmm. And I do like that element of the way that they told that story too, just like I did like it in Average Joe too, like meeting them at their lowest, getting glimpses of their past, and then seeing something else. I don't know why I like this, but like we just hyper focus on something else, but it ends up bringing us back together as a couple.
A group project, I will say, like there is something about working with your partner and accomplishing something that will give your relationship a boost. Like during Christmas time, my husband and I, we gave our daughter a toy kitchen, but like we've renovated it. Like, so we bought like 2 toy kitchens, and we added like counter, backsplash, like
on these toy kitchens.
We did. We went full HD TV, like working sink and backsplashes and, countertops and all of this stuff. And it was like very beautiful and very organized with all of these different things. And it looks nothing like that now because she's a 1.5-year old. It's not giving HGTV until like we do resets, but we like worked on it together, and it was so enjoyable because like there are things that were hard for me that he would do, and then like I'm like showing him my plans and my visions, and so you get to see your partner at their best and doing something they're good at, and you get to put your heads together and work together. And then at the end, it turned out so gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And we were like standing back and like, oh, we did that. And that is, it's a great feeling, honestly. And so, yes, a project, a situation, like a problem solving situation where you're working together against something else.
Yeah.
It honestly is like one of the best things. It's better than like a date. Like when you're trying to reconnect, a lot of times like you oh well, let's go on a date, and then the date is like awkward because you guys don't have that
chemistry. So what you really need to do is to solve a murder, and I get that.
Yes, you need something where you two are working together against something else, mm-hmm. and that will bring you close together.
Common enemy.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I had way long ago, I had an ex who would get upset when we would argue. He could never win. And I'm like, if you want to win an argument, you can team up with me and we can go argue with somebody else. You're never going to beat me in an argument. If you want to have that feeling, let's team up and we can go argue with somebody
else. And she meant that.
Yeah. I mean, and so, yeah, teaming up against somebody is a great way to connect with your partner.
Yeah. I like it.
So, but yeah, this show, I enjoyed it, but it just left me, I wanted more.
I do want more. I really wish they had gotten a second season, but at the same time, there's a part of me that like I said, I think they did make it self-contained just in case.
They did. And like we were talking about, they are pulling strings with storytelling and saying, you know what, I don't have to wrap everything up in a neat little bow. No. I don't have to explain. I don't have to explain everything. It is this is what happened. Mm-hmm. How you feel about it is how you feel about it. But these are the things that happen, and it's like, what is a story?
Mm-hmm. What is a story? So I do want to ask you something about, okay, so like towards the end, like the very last episode, and they found the kids in this giant pool of interesting looking water that has preserved them for 15 years. So that's what actually happened. They wandered into the cave. They found Pasaje. They end up contained in that pool for 15 years, completely preserved, like it's 2007 for them. You know what I mean? And then when they get out of the pool and they're kind of adjusting to realizing that they've lost 15 years of their life, basically. Mm-hmm. What is Sam, the boy, is like messing around with his ear, just like Alex was. And I'm like, do you think he now has memory leakage?
Ooh.
Because like when Violet's asked questions about what happened in there, she saw her mother, it still hurts or what have you, but she has memories. When he's asked, he says, I don't know. He may. And then does it cause memory leakage with some people and not with others? Because Violet seems like she's, at least right now, with what we saw at the end, and he's messing around with his ear like he might be having some leakage, and his memory is already a little off.
So what you found out in the beginning of the story is that Violet lost her mom a year ago to cancer. Mm-hmm. And so in like the book that Ibarra wrote, was the mom had that book, and she had put all of these copious notes in the book, and she told Violet, meet me in Pasaje, like this mythical place that's in the book, and we can see each other again. So Violet is going to Pasaje with a plan with a mission, with something to accomplish,
Mhm.
Sam is just going along. And
Mhm.
so my question is it because she had a purpose
Mhm.
and a mission when she went in there, is the reason that, Sam, maybe he had memory leakage because he wasn't focused. So he's just there.
He's just there. And the same thing, Alejandro is just there because he's just wondering. But what I think is there's everybody is connected. And I know this is like one of the things we're talking about by loss. Violet lost something. And
Hmm.
she went in there to find it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas Sam just went in there. And so the same thing with Alejandro. He, there's no indication that either of them had lost anything before they went in there.
Well, Sam did lose something because he lost his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Because he found out his girlfriend was cheating on him, but he had already found something
Somebody,
in
yeah.
Violet.
I'm like,
So he even though he had lost something, he had already found the thing that he had lost.
mm-hmm.
So he went in there, I agree, not in the same state that Violet went in, because what we learned, the author also went to Pasaje. He went with Alex. And so my question is, when the author went in, because he didn't experience memory leakage, did he lose something?
Mm-hmm. He didn't get in the pool.
Oh, he didn't? Did I miss
No.
that?
Sam called him out about that and he never answered.
Oh.
He didn't get in. He was
Oh.
like, "You didn't go in, did you?" And he just stood there. He didn't say anything.
Mm.
Alex, like, they got to the end, just like he took them to the entrance, they got to the
Mhm.
entrance. I think Alex went in and Elon did not.
I don't blame him. Because I'm not really sure I understand what Pasaje actually is
Mm-hmm.
and what it's for. Because,
Yeah,
like,
agreed.
initially when, what is the wife's name?
Emma.
Why am I always so terrible with names? Initially, when Emma went in and she saw their bodies floating, my first thought was, "Oh my God, she found their bodies." And I'm like, why are they not like more bones? Like I'm like, them being alive
Never dawned
never
on you.
occurred to me. Never occurred to me. But when you look and Emma is looking in the water, what does Emma see? Because
Her baby.
they don't tell you that.
They
It
don't.
looks like galaxies and cosmos, but I
Mhm.
wondered, I'm like, did she see the face of her child?
I think so. And the reason why I say so is I watch it with the subtitles on and it just says baby giggling at the bottom. While
Right, but
watching,
there was, because she heard her baby giggling in the jungle or something.
she
When
heard her baby giggling like when she was getting close to the actual like magical waters. And
Mhm.
it's kind of let her in there. And then when she was looking, the baby was still giggling as she looked. So I think she saw the face of her baby.
I was hoping that's what she saw, but I
But it
wasn't.
never, it doesn't. And and knowing this story, it's not going to explicitly tell you.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I want
What
to
it's
end.
not going to do, what the resort is not going to do is answer any of your questions. That's not what
It's
it's going
not.
to do. That's not what it's there for.
I want to end this episode because I honestly want us to get into the loss and the themes of loss.
Mhm.
And I think we need more time for that. And so I think this is a good stopping point. Is we've given a very chaotic introduction, but it's because it's a chaotic show, guys.
It is
I,
cage.
watch the show and you will understand why the
It's up
conversation
down.
is so frenetic, because the show is so chaotic, and it introduces so many concepts and it does not solve any of them. It just introduces you. It's just there to open your mind and
And
expand your mind and have you think about things. There will be no answers.
no,
It's so open. It's a choose your own adventure, in the sense that you're going to spend the next few days like,
making your own meaning of it.
right, you're like, okay, so what do we think happens with Sam? What happens, like, with Violet and her dad? Like, there's so
Right.
many open-ended
Ooh.
questions.
And then is you making your own meaning of it part of the story, the
I
storytelling
think
element?
so.
Yeah.
I think so. I can't say because we didn't get a season 2, so we don't know if they had plans or
Mhm.
if they only ever planned to give us questions in
Mhm.
order for us to search ourselves and say, what does that mean to you? What
Yeah.
does that look like to you? How are you interpreting that?
Mhm.
So, guys, please catch us on our next episode. We're going to continue to talk about the resort, and honestly, like the themes are so interesting. We're going to explain more about some of these chaotic characters, and I think you'll really
I'm ready
enjoy
for
it.
the
But
next
thank you so much
episode.